I started with no patients. So far, I've pelleted over 23,000 butts. So it's my claim to fame.
Did you know that fewer than 2% of U.S. women over the age of 40 use hormone therapy, even though 75% suffer from menopausal symptoms? In her new book, Are You Hormone Curious?, Carolyn Zaumeyer explains why HRT is underused and how targeted treatment can banish fatigue, brain fog, and mood swings. Welcome to VNEW Health, powered by Arms Medical. Let's bridge the gap between confusion and confidence in your hormone health. Well, we've got Carolyn Zaumeyer, who's a advanced registered nurse practitioner and has been doing this for quite some time. We've got her in the studio today. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me.
And you just put out a book, Are You Hormone Curious? If someone was going to pick this book up today, what are the top 3 things they're going to walk away with?
Hormones are good. There's been so much misinformation out there about hormones, causing cancer and all these issues. And the reason I wrote the book was to educate people on the safety of hormone replacement therapy if you're using bioidentical. Synthetic is a whole different ballgame, but bioidentical hormones are safe. That's one thing I want them to take it away. Number 2, I want them to learn some good nuggets about the benefits of hormone therapy, because there's a host of them. Estrogen has over 400 functions in the body. Testosterone has over 100 functions in the body. So when we don't have that, as we naturally age, we lose that and we don't feel like ourselves. And so one thing I love about my practice is I find people that are not feeling well. I bring them in, I talk with them, do a free consultation, and then I help them feel better, help them live healthier and happier. So I guess that's my third one. I lost count.
You're going to feel better, right? So we know that hormones are good, and we're going to talk about the Women's Health Initiative. But I'm gonna back up a little bit and just say, how did you get into this space of working with both men and women in the areas of hormone replacement? How'd you come about that?
It was kind of happenstance. When I first came out of nursing school, nurse practitioner school, I was hired by a local OBGYN. And I felt like I needed to learn more. I was like a little sponge. And so I shared a desk with him and I would do chart reviews. And I kept going through his charts and I'd see this common notation for the menopausal women: psych referral, psych referral, psych referral. Oh, Lord. I said, finally, I went to him with a stack of charts and I said, listen, all these ladies cannot be crazy. And he says, oh, yeah, they are. They need to get their lives together. They're hot, they're miserable, they're bitchy, their relationships are in disarray. They need to get their lives together. So that's why they need to go. And I said, can I have these patients? He says, God bless you. You take the old birds and I'll go deliver babies.
I'm like, can you have them? I
So
can't transfer them fast enough to you.
yeah, so
Right?
I dove into it, and I was correcting women back then with Premarin and Prempro, because this is a long time ago. I'm really 100 years old. See what hormones do. But anyway, I started correcting them, and I kept getting these great phone calls from the patients. Oh my God, you changed my life. You changed my relationship. I like myself better. My husband likes me better. And it was just really, it was so empowering that I had this ability to make people feel better.
You're like going, all right, I am onto something, right? 'Cause this is a spot that's not always talked about, right? And this is, you know, what, like 20, you know, early 2000s, right? Or late 1990s.
The Women's Health Initiative came out, like you said, in 2002 and blew our hormones out of the water. And it came back with, the headlines on the newspapers was that estrogen kills, it causes breast cancer. It doesn't. What they did, there was a huge study that was poorly designed, poorly run, that's been discredited and dismantled many times over. And what they found was the women that just got the estrogen were better. They had less breast cancer, less everything. where the women that had the estrogen plus the synthetic progesterone, this progestin, it was called Provera back in the day, those were the ones that had the problems. They had breast cancer, deep vein thrombosis, heart attack, stroke, increased risk of Alzheimer's. And the women on the estrogen only arm were great. So if you don't have a uterus, you could take just the estrogen and not the progesterone. But the women that had a uterus in the study were the ones that had the problems. But the ones without uteruses did great. So that just showed us it wasn't the estrogen, it was the synthetic progestin. So, with that, I thought there's no way I can convince everybody that the synthetic hormone is gonna work, that it's safe. And so I had heard about bioidenticals. I actually had to Google, what is bioidentical? What does it stand for? And which it stands for bio stands for biology, meaning it's plant derived. Ours are derived from wild yams. And identical is referencing the chemical molecular structure like you have behind you on the wall, the octagon with the lines, is exactly the same as what our bodies produce. So when we bring these hormones back into our bodies are just convinced they're naturally producing more and more hormone. So we get to feel like we did 10, 15 years ago. It gives you that youthful feeling back. So once I figured out what a bioidentical hormone was, then I had to find the nation's greatest. So I searched out and I found four of the best bioidentical hormone experts in the country. I traveled and studied under them. And I get so excited. I come back from my teachings and I'm like, wait, they didn't teach me how to dose. Okay, let me try another one because I knew about the hormones and the safety, the research, and all that. So I try another one. Same thing. I come back and I'm like, no, they want you to put a pearl of cream
So
on
so
your.
what year is this now? Because the
Oh, this is like back in I don't even know. I'm blonde. Here, you're asking me math questions? It was a while ago, a long time ago. I've been doing the pellets for probably 14, 15 years now. And so for that. And so I come back, and then finally, the fourth doctor that I studied under, Dr. Gary Donovitz, finally put it all together and taught me how to dose precisely to personalize it for each patient. And then it was just like, let's go. And I started with no patients. So far, I've pelleted over 23,000 butts. So it's my claim to fame. So that's how I got started. And it's been a joy. This practice just took off, and we've had like geometrical growth over the years. Every year, it just keeps getting more and more. And so I've been very fortunate with that. But we also have a very caring environment. We give our patients respect. Phone calls are returned by me, so we take good care of our patients.
most of the people now you've got a ratio of men to women. What does that currently sit at within your practice?
About 25% are male. It could be even up to 30. When I first started doing this, when I came back from my training in Texas, it was odd that in Texas, the guys were very open about it. Very talking, at the barbecue, the swimming pool. Oh, what's your number? What are you doing? And then I bring this back to introduce it to the men in South Florida, and it was like, whatever my number is, it's just fine. They didn't want to hear anything about it because it was like I was insulting their manliness. And what they don't know, they think low T equals ED. Well, that's the last thing to leave the building. Before that, men have the fatigue, the belly fat, the man boobs. They're losing their muscle. They don't feel like doing anything. They'd rather sit in the chair than go out, that type of thing. So once I was treating their wives, then, a lot of them will send their wife in first, see how she does, and then they'll come in, but they got to send the wife in first. So
Well, it's very interesting because so primarily women, and so how do they get to you at this stage? Because unfortunately, and you talk about it in the book, uh, the healthcare system is broken in this area of management for patients that are perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal. It's just like you cited in the book about basically 8% get any type of education in that, and now you're expected to treat and manage for it. And so, where do you find your patients, you know, where were they? The GYNs, family practice, internal medicine? How do they finally get on your doorstep?
I have many, doctors here in Fort Lauderdale that do refer to me. In the beginning, they thought I was doing voodoo or something, but now they've seen how happy and healthy their patients are, and their labs are getting better, they're just living a better life, so they've gotten the memo.
Like, "Oh, you must be doing something
Yeah.
important," because like, their labs are better, they're in a better mood, they're they don't take Zoloft,
So, yeah, and so I have a lot of referrals from doctors within the community, but I also have many patient referrals. Happy patients send more, and we do a little referral bonus for them. But I also, an odd thing happened. I realized the other day that I had an international following, meaning I have a patient that flies in from Nigeria every 3 months, one from Romania, two from Scotland, one's a TV actress, and then two from Hawaii. I mean, and it's just like, I know there's providers closer to you, and they're like, "Well, it's not you." And I'm like, "Well, I can't argue on that one." So, I've been very blessed to have a very good reputation, and my patients, tend to send their friends and family.
one of the things that you, spoke about, in the book is the fact that, trying to figure out that balance with the patient and really treating all of them, right? From testosterone to the estrogen, progesterone, that triangle. What's your approach so that if someone comes to see you, how do you first start and then walk me through that process?
When they decide to check in with us, there's a patient application on the website that they can complete online. And once they submit that, then our new patient coordinator reaches out and gathers any recent labs they have that we can use, or schedules them to have their labs drawn. And then I do a free telephone conversation with them, a consultation, and I take into account their age, their weight, their exercise. If they're like, triathletes, they're going to need more because they're going to burn through it faster. And then also what their symptoms are. Like, if all their symptoms that they're wanting to correct are testosterone based, and I know them in my head, which they are, libido, night sweats, joint pain, I'll lean more on that. But if they're having hot flashes during the day, or vaginal dryness, problems with urination, like frequency, then I'll really go for the estrogen to revitalize the neighborhood down there to get things all plump and moist and youthful. So it's a combination of things that we bring into effect. But their age and their weight is a big player in it, and then their exercise level. But then also the labs. If their estrogen is on the basement, like so low you can't measure it, then I'll give them a little bit more of that. So just to get them happy. The interesting thing about hormone replacement therapy is why it has to be personalized is because people feel better at different levels. Like, so I have some patients that feel great when their testosterone levels at 150. I feel my best at 350. And everybody's like, "Oh my god, that's way over the reference range." Well, the reference range is made for women in my age that are not getting treated, that are miserable, so I don't care about that reference range as long it's not gonna cause any harm. As you go higher with women, you may grow a whisker, and if patients complain about that, I say, "Well, I can lower your testosterone." "Oh, no, don't do that. I'll deal with the whisker." So, uh there's a lot of different things that go with it, and the reason, like I said, a triathlete may need it more often or a higher dose is because it's cardio released, meaning when your blood so I use a pellet system, it's just compacted hormone that's inserted under the skin, and when your blood supply passes by, it picks up the little pieces of the hormone and gently raises your hormone levels up during the first 4 to 6 weeks, then holds them steady for 3 to 5 months for women and 5 to 7 months for men.
And so this little pellet about the size of a Tic Tac, if people know what that looks like, and then those are dosed accordingly based on your labs and, of course, just, provider input.
Yeah, my experience. I mean, I've been pelleting more than anybody in the state for 14, 15 years. Number 1 in Florida, number 2 in the nation. This is all I do. A patient can't have an experience that I've never seen before, because there's nothing to be allergic to, and it's just basically the procedure. And if you go to someone who does not do a lot of pelleting, you could end up with some big issues because they're not going to dose it precisely. And they're also not going to know what to do if you have, say, vaginal bleeding or breast tenderness or a problem with the wound, So it really depends on who you go to because I'll hear from some patients, oh, my sister did the pellet and it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because there's a doctor here in town that's not doing labs, throwing in the same dose to every woman that comes in, not including estrogen because he doesn't want phone calls. So it's just like not all pellets are created equal, and not all pelleters are created equal.
Yeah, so there's definitely some science behind it, as well as your years of experience. And so, from a when you talked about pellets and created equal, how do you go about obtaining your pellets, and then how do you know that you're always getting best of the best? Because I know that's important to you.
Absolutely. I only work with the, best compounding pharmacies around, and, I believe both of them are based in Texas. And what happens is they take out for quality control, they take out 1 pellet every out of every batch that they make. They send it off to another laboratory and have it verified 8 different ways for sterility, for weight, compactedness, dosing, make sure it's the right dose. It has a 3% margin where generic medications, as you know, can be 30%. I prescribe 100 milligrams, it could be 70 or 130. This has to be within 3% of a variance. And so I know that they're being tested. So I know what I'm putting in my patients is what it says on the box. And I do so many, I have a lot on hand, and I'm able to adjust the dose when the patient comes in. If they say, yeah, it was good, but I really didn't have much of a libido or my energy wasn't where I wanted, I'd like to go up a little notch. So I have that freedom that I can correct on the fly. Or where if you go to some other pelleters, they have to order the pellets, have it shipped to the patient, then the patient has to carry it in, which a controlled substance, you're not supposed to carry it in the car. So I don't know how all that works.
So, so it's great that you have this stock of different dosing, so that any micro adjustments can be made right there based on how they're feeling, and then to bring them up or bring them down slightly, ever so slightly, and then see how they respond to it to find what that optimum dose looks like. Um, so always a benefit, and I think if you're a woman out here that is liking what they're hearing, of course, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, um, and at the same time know that some of these insights matter. Where do you get your pellets? How do you micro adjust and dose? How often do you do this? Is this something that's, part of your practice, or is it something that you've just added because it's a nice sourse of revenue, right? So you have people that's not always their focus, or in fact, this is all you do, and you have committed your life to helping both men and women live a healthier, better life. So, what's the oldest person that you are currently putting pellets into?
I believe my oldest is 92. And there's a rumor out there that if you don't start, it's misinformation. If you don't start with hormone replacement therapy before menopause, that it does you no good, which is not true. I've got people that I'm starting in their 70s and their 80s, and they feel fabulous. And you try to take away their hormones, they will not let go of them. They love their hormones, and it's not hurting them, and it's only helping them aging healthier and younger. Just think of it, if you could age with youthful, hormone levels, then, you it's like Benjamin Button, you would just keep aging younger. So it's a good thing, yeah.
So we talked on the patient that is older, that's coming in, that hasn't had anything. You can help them, but at the same time, there's this big population of patient that feels like this, going through menopause is just part of getting older. And so how would you respond to that?
Well, if you wanna age naturally, take an apple, put it on your counter, go back in 3 months and take a look at it. That's not how I wanna age. I don't wanna be all shriveled up. I can tell, and I did this with my mother back when I was first starting to prescribe hormones. I can tell by looking at a woman whether she's had the benefit of estrogen as she aged or not. Because my mother is 91, just celebrated her birthday. Her skin is nice and thick and healthy like mine. The women that haven't had the benefit of estrogen, it looks like you could tear it when you touch it. You've seen that real thin skin. They haven't had the benefit of the estrogen as they age, and what's going on up here is going on down there. So, you gotta have healthy tissue.
Right. And so they're really, you know, at the first sign or symptom of any of those feelings of maybe hot flashes or lethargy or just overall changes in your mood or because there's this perimenopausal phase that you can help these patients with. I mean, it should be it's many times skipped.
Yeah. Now, you asked me about my oldest patient. My
Yep.
young
Let's
patients
talk
are
about your youngest patients now.
in their 20s, and
Okay.
what happens is, and both male and female. And, they'll come in, fatigue is a big thing, low libido. For a guy to have low libido in his 20s, something's wrong. So usually they're, like, raging. And I had this perfect patient. She was a new mother, and she was in her late 20s, and she came in and she says, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I have a perfect life. I have a great home. I have my husband. I love my husband. I've got my baby. Everything is good, but I just don't have that loving feeling." She didn't have the chemical libido, ooh, the urge to have relations with her husband. She said that was the last thing on her list of things to do. And I said, "Let me just test your labs." So I test her labs. Her testosterone came back so low they couldn't measure it. And she was just in her 20s. And so I corrected her testosterone. She came back 6 weeks later for her lab test, and she says, "I feel like a new woman. You've changed my life. My husband likes me better. I like me better." The whole thing. She was just like a champ. And what it leads me to wonder is, because we use this, all the things that the hormones, the top like 10 that I go through is getting a better sleep, feeling a better mood, getting the spring back in your step, brain fog lifting, libido, sexual thoughts are more, sexual satisfaction is better, joint pain for many people is relieved, vaginal dryness, temperature swings like hot flashes, night sweats. Those are really the top biggies that people come in for. But the thing with the age is it's not age dependent. I can have a young man, I did, in his early 30s that had a lower testosterone than his father that I was treating in his 60s. And so it's just your body when it stops producing it. So if I get ladies that are, younger, I'll listen to them and see what I can do. Because one of the things, it makes me wonder about postpartum depression. You know, is it a drop in the testosterone? Because we actually use these pellets to treat PTSD for returning war vets and first responders. Not that it fixes the PTSD, but it helps with the moods, it helps with depression, anxiety, sleep, relationships, so they feel better. They feel like going out and being more productive, exercising, and all that. So it's been really good that way. And one of you had touched on this before, that traditional medicine, a lot of times, since they don't know it, if they're not up on it, they're down on it. Yeah, and to learn hormones, you have to step out of your regular office and go to courses and learn this and study and the whole bit. It's not something quick and easy that you can learn. And so some of my patients say that they ask their GYN to test their hormones, and they say no, that they're not gonna do it, or if they do it, they just test, the female hormones, the FSH, estradiol, and LH. They don't even test testosterone because they don't have the answer on how to fix it.
Right. Well, we know from previous, what the medical students are graduating with. They're not taught this. And so we had talked about it with Dr. Jardigan in our three-part series on menopause, is how women have to empower themselves to become educated. Unfortunately, we're trying to do better within the residency program and medical education programs to help teach the young adults this information. And it's getting there. And, certainly books like this are very helpful. Like if you are a person who uh, wants to know more about hormones, even if you are in, I would say as a medical student, could get some value from this because you dive into some of the women's health initiative, you give some background about it, you give some more context behind it, which is very important, as well as an approach to how to treat both men and women with bioidenticals. And I think that's really if someone how would you classify where we're at today with the bioidenticals to, previously with the synthetics? Do you think there's a place for them in this world at this point, or do you think we can move away from them um, and offer women and men both bioidenticals?
Very rarely do I see anybody prescribing the Premarin or Prempro anymore because I take the patient's history of what they've done in the past, and if they've done that, that was a long time ago. They may use the Premarin cream for vaginal rejuvenation, which they should just be getting the estrogen from the inside, treated from the inside out to revitalize the neighborhood. But I don't really see it written that much anymore. There's some benefit to there's synthetic progestin that is good for a bleeding issue. So there are some uses for it, but not on a long-term basis, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, very fortunate to where it's come to, and you've been able to build a very successful practice from living your passion,
Yeah, yeah, and making people happy.
making
We
people happy.
we have the book available on our website, and we actually mail it out for no charge. So if anybody wants to go to LOW, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, Florida spelled out .com, there's a little place down at the bottom of the homepage, I believe it is, where you can enter your information, and we'll get it off in the mail to you. I mailed it out to over 200 local doctors, and haven't heard a word.
Well, I love it. I think for anyone wanting to know and understand about uh, hormones, how they can be beneficial, what they should be thinking about. I think you laid out a very nice, succinct way of teaching us about the space. And so take advantage of what Caroline is saying and go to her website.
We talked about the feel good effects, and but the health benefits are crazy good. I mean, we've been using the pellets here in this country for well over 80 years. So during that time, we have hundreds of studies showing not just the feel good effects or the safety, but also how aging with hormones is so much healthier. Our studies are showing a decreased risk of Alzheimer's by up to 50% using testosterone. Who wouldn't do that? Alzheimer's, dementia, cardiac issues, less cardiac issues, and even breast cancer for women, up to a 40% decreased risk of breast cancer utilizing the testosterone pellets. There's actually one researcher, Dr. Rebecca Glazier out of Dayton, Ohio, that treats patients with breast cancer with the pellets, meaning putting the pellets around the tumor and watching it shrink. I mean, so there's a lot of great research out there. A lot of people say, oh, there's not any research. There's lots of research. And you had touched on how patients are becoming more informed and doing their own research and all that. I love that. I love having smart patients that come in with their list of questions, put me on the spot. It's like speed dating, fire your questions. I'll take them. So, just to age healthier and happier. I mean, to have, I have in the beginning of the book, you'll read a couple that wrote up forward for me about how life-changing it was for their relationship. They had been married 30 years, had kids that have gone to college and all that, and this just gave them a reconnect when they had their testosterone, when they got that back. They just had more of those loving feelings and felt better about themselves, and life was so much better. To the point that they had a meeting with each other and said that no matter what happens, we'll find the money for pellets. And then they were coining it hashtag pellets for life.
So do you think we're ever going to get to a point where it's going to be covered by insurance, or that would be too responsible and
That'd be silly. They don't insurance doesn't want you to feel good or to age well. They want you to get off so anyway, but a lot of times we're able to wean people off certain medications once their hormones are optimized, like antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, because it works with that so well. So it is possible. I think, having RFK Jr. On the case, it's a very possibility. So we'll see.
Well, if you think about it, you made a great comment is, they might be on something for depression. They might be on something, for mood enhancement, as well as, blood pressure medication, as well as maybe something for sleep, right? So you start, and they're taking those on a monthly basis. And if they can substitute it with having the right hormone levels, you can really ask them that is when did all these things start? These conditions start, and all of a sudden they start stacking these pharmacology pills on top of it, and it's $50 for this, $50 for this, 20 for this, and
What happens is traditional medicine, a lot of times, if you go to an older gynecologist that's not up on things, or maybe even a younger one that's not up on things, when you say that you have hot flashes, their first line of treatment is an antidepressant. You didn't go in there saying you're sad. And antidepressants can make a happy person feel sad. They just don't feel well. And so then they're on the antidepressant and they start to gain weight. Oh, good. Let's give them some phentermine, get them all jazzed up. Oh, but then the blood pressure goes up. Oh, let's give them some blood pressure pills. Oh, now their thyroid's whacked. Got to give them that. And now they're fat, they're miserable, still having hot flashes,
they're depressed.
and they're depressed, and just like, come on, then we need to get them on cholesterol medication so they're going to feel even worse with achy joints. So it's a bad cascade that we just need to treat the root of the problem. Give it a try. I mean, our pellets last for 3 to 5 months for women. If you don't like it, you don't do it again. But I 94% return rate for the second pellet, meaning it's worth putting a little bit of cash down and getting poked in the booty. Well, that didn't sound good. The pellets go in the upper outer quadrant of the buttock.
There we go, there we go. Well, I mean, or for people like me that are thin, in the flank, so for men, if they don't have a lot in their behind and they're active and they're playing ice hockey and skating, yeah, then we find another home for them.
Yep, absolutely. I have one doctor that likes me to put the pellets in his abdomen so that he can watch it heal. A little
Okay,
bit, but I do it.
I'm gonna have to think about that one.
No, you don't want it.
Probably not,
Uh-uh.
probably not. And any other things that our viewers should know, understand, what you feel is really important, for someone wanting to learn more or, in fact, reach out to you in your office and schedule an appointment?
I just feel like life's too short to feel miserable. If you don't feel well, reach out. Let's at least have the conversation. It doesn't cost you anything. You can get your labs done. No matter where you are in the country, we'll send you a prescription for your labs and we'll have the conversation and see if it's right for you. And if it is, it might be worth a trip to Fort Lauderdale for the weekend. Have a nice time on the beach. Come in on holiday because you can't swim right after the pellet. So, yeah.
No, no, that's great advice. Carolyn's office, absolutely fantastic. They take such good care of all of their patients, and certainly feel fortunate to have you on the program today, and we'd love to, have you back in the near future, and best of luck in your book. I loved it. It was fantastic, enjoyed it, and certainly, I think we're going to educate a lot of people today, which is what we want to do, as part of our show here at VNEW Health. So thanks again.